Welcome into Bears Weekly, powered by IGS Energy, a Chicago Bears network production. Bears Weekly is brought to you by Advocate Healthcare, Athletico Physical Therapy, CDW, Connie's Pizza, IGS Energy, and Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Jeff Joniak, a.k.a. the Mayor of Bearsville, and his sidekick, Tom the Surfmaster Thayer.
This NFC North obstacle course continues for the Bears as they prepare for a battle against the Detroit Lions at Ford Field Sunday at noon. Hi, everybody. It's Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 on the Bears Radio Network with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak. We break down the matchup on a day we also remember those who lost their lives in 9/11. If you've had your television or radio on today, it takes you back, indeed. Dan Barilli, Jordan Treadup, Katie Fox, our producers, along with Kendra Smith in studio, the executive producer of the Bears Radio Network, Eric Ostrowski. Tommy, good to talk to you. You and I were getting ready for the season opener in 2001, our first year together as the play-by-play crew along with Hub Arkish, and I'll never forget it because I was headed to Halissaw. I called you, and you told me to turn around and go home. And went back home, couldn't believe what was going on, and then we went to Baltimore that first week, lost to the eventual Super Bowl champion Ravens, and then the Bears went on a 6-game winning streak and set the table for a division title and playoff appearance.
Yeah, I was already up at Jay Hilgenberg's house in Lake Forest, and he saw a plane hit one of the towers, and he looked at me, he says, "We're being attacked." And I didn't know how to comprehend that. I didn't know if it was real reality. And then all the other unfortunate incidences that happened around the United States that day, it gave you such a dose of reality into my adulthood, and it's something I've never really experienced before. And so it's going to be an instant in time that you're never going to forget as long as you're alive. And to all the people who lost their lives that day and the first responders, just everybody, because now after all this time, you see still shots of that moment in time, and it's just a horrific experience that it filtered around the world.
Yep, glad you mentioned the first responders as well, because the sacrifice undeniable. So thank you for all first responders out there, for all situations, whether it be here or abroad. All right, let's switch gears and talk Bears football. The Detroit Lions will play host. It's a hornet's nest over there, Tommy, and I think we'd agree it'll be a hornet's nest on Sunday after that opening week loss at Green Bay and what's ahead for them. Lots to discuss. We're going to have a lot of different viewpoints today, but what's yours right out of the gate?
You know, we've seen a transition in a building unlike any other places that we've been around throughout our careers in the NFL. And what Dan Campbell has done to Ford Field, it's one of the most hostile environments that you can go in and play. And nobody knows that any better than Ben Johnson. You know, that's part of his football upbringing. And so now he's the head coach of the Chicago Bears. You have to go back and you have to watch that tape from the Minnesota Vikings game, and you immediately have to look at how to make corrections that will affect and factor in the Detroit Lions game. And he knows that team well. He knows the talent, and I think it gives him a great basis to formulate a game plan that's going to go into week 2 in the NFL season.
All right, from the Bears Etc. podcast, that dropped on Tuesday of this week. The interview with Ben Johnson focused on a couple of things I want to bring up here. We'll play chunks of it. The first one is on finishing games, which the Bears and many other teams in the league have to figure out a way to make that happen. We could talk about finishing runs, finishing tackles, finishing drives, but finishing games, awful important. There may be a simple answer to this, and it may be self-explanatory, but I know we've talked a lot about a team learning how to win, certainly in the fourth quarter, how to put teams away or come from behind. But from your experience, what does it take to win the fourth quarter?
Yeah, it takes, I would say this, when everything's starting to go sideways like it felt like it was doing there in the fourth quarter, all it takes is every man to start concentrating a little bit more on his job. Just focus on your job. I think a lot of times some guys will panic or they'll try to do too much, but the right response is just focus on your technique, your fundamentals, your alignment, your assignment, and just do your job a little bit better than what you've been doing. And usually you can tighten it up and get back on track. And so, listen, this is a good learning experience for us, as painful as it's been. But you're right, we have to learn how to how to finish opponents when we have them right on the ropes.
Okay, yeah, finishing, that's going to be something that's going to preach week in and week out, depending upon what type of play you have called, pass, run, offense, defense. He also brought up the word focus, and I think that when you're trying to teach 4 quarters of focus to a football team, that's part of finishing as well. So Ben knows the big picture of success and the transition from the experience of creating success, and I like the message that he brought to you on Tuesday, and I like the message that he's bringing into the weekend.
How about the discussion of the run game? Certainly, he's talked about wanting the need to run it more, get Kyle Monangai involved. We don't know where Roshan is going to be just yet. Of course, DeAndre Swift, the main ball carrier, but just the wide zone and how long it takes. This also from the Bears Etc. podcast.
When you talk about the wide zone scheme, it usually takes guys, 4, 6, 8 games to truly get a good feel for how you want to press your landmark, when you want to stay on track, when you want to bounce it, and when you want to cut it up. And so, we weren't always consistent with that, but I was pretty pleased with how hard Swifty ran. He didn't shy away from contact. He lowered his shoulder. You felt the physical nature of his play. We want to get Kyle more carries as we get going into this season. And then I did think DJ, when the ball was in his hands, was a good little change up for us as well, because he does have a little bit of gas when he sees a little crease, he steps on it.
Yeah, I love the deep set DJ. He came blasting out of there, didn't he?
Yeah, he sure did.
Yeah.
Sure did.
And so that's something to keep an eye on. Interesting, you said that amount of time, 6 to 8 games, right?
It could. It depends.
But it just underscores, like, this is something that it's just going to take some time.
Yeah, I go back and, the version of wide zone that we run, I learned from a guy named Chris Furster in Miami. It was 2016, and it took us a while, that 2016 season, to get going. And, I want to say we ended up going on a stretch of winning 9 out of 10, going to the wild card, making the playoffs, and that was really good. But a guy named Jay Ajayi ended up having 3 200-yard games, rushing games that season, and really carried the load there for us on offense, and we were very wide zone predicated, and so that's been my experience with it. And so sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you'd like, but once it starts clicking, it's usually pretty effective.
One thing about running game, the development of a running game, there's so many integral bodies of importance to have a successful running game, whether it's outside zone or it's an inside running play. First of all, the ball carrier, he's instrumental, obviously, but his vision and his trust in the running game, making sure that you trust the point of attack, that even though it's not open when you get the handoff, that in an eighth of a second later, it can be open. And you're trying to determine the design of a football play to get second and third level defenders in position to be blocked. And those types of faith are developed over time, carries, repetitions, and that will, take through the whole season and years to create that. And then you have a different understanding at home and on the road. At home, you're going to hear the snap count and everybody's going to get off the line of scrimmage at the same time. On the road, you're going to have to develop the rhythm of the snap count so everybody is getting off the ball in an efficient time frame. And so all those types of things factor in the running game. Hey, man, every offensive coordinator throughout the history of time, with the exception of maybe a Mouse Davis or Lavelle Edwards, they want to run the ball more. And so I think Ben's no different than anybody else.
All right, coming up in the show, we got a lot to discuss, all the coordinators, and we're also going to hear from the voice of the Detroit Lions, Dan Miller, with a perspective about what's going on up there in Detroit. Coming up next, we visit with Dayo Odeyingbo on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
This is Bears Weekly, with the voice of the Bears for 24 years, Jeff Joniak. On the Bears Radio Network.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy with Tom Thayer, Jeff Joniak. As it occurred to me, Tommy, it's year 5 for number 55, who's 25 in 2025. That's Dayo Odeyingbo. So I wondered if there was any significance in number 55 for Dayo, our featured interview this week here on ESPN 1000 and Bears Weekly.
Felt right. I kind of wanted to change my number already, so it felt right, and I think it's pretty fitting.
And I looked it up. The number 55 or the number 5, the repeating numbers in Nigerian culture, it's the number equals transformation and personal growth. And there's a spiritual component to it too.
Yes, sir.
I know you're a deep thinker about your history and your heritage and your family. Are you surprised? I mean, maybe this is transformational coming here to Chicago and the personal growth.
Absolutely. No, it feels very fitting. That's something that I didn't know, so that's new to me, and I'll probably do more research on that. But it feels fitting.
This is a big point in your career, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Every opportunity is a blessing, and to have this opportunity to take this next step at this point in my career and at this age, it's a lot ahead of me. So I'm just taking it day by day, working to get better every day and show all that work, when the opportunity comes.
It's like there's always something on the horizon that they dangle. The analysts of football, and maybe even in the scouting departments. Do you feel that pressure sometimes of, okay, I got to meet and surpass expectations of them, but also from my own self?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I feel like most of the pressure comes from within and my own expectations of myself. I think it's a good, pressure is a blessing. It's a good thing. So, but at the same time, you can't let it overtake you and get to you too much. So,
has it ever?
I mean, I do believe, throughout my entire career, not even just, the NFL, but even college and high school, like, pressure can get to you and, affect different areas of your life, not even just football. So, that's always an adversity you kind of have to face and something you have to deal with. And I think that's something, every single player, really person has had to deal with in their own life. But, pressure makes diamonds at the end of the day, and pressure has pushed me to get to this spot in my life, and it's going to continue to push me to get to the next.
I feel in the performance business, whatever it be, stage, silver screen, football, athletics, radio announcer, and I've heard this said many times, pressure is a privilege.
Absolutely.
Because you're in this position for your raw talent and your ability, and you're making good on it, but it's also a privilege. Not everybody can do it or is big enough and fast enough and long enough to do it in your case, or they just don't have the work ethic. So do you embrace that angle of it as well? It is a privilege.
No, absolutely. And at every level, it's like you said, there's always something in front of you. It was the pressure to get to college, and then the pressure to start in college, the pressure to dominate and get to the next level and get drafted. Then there's the pressure to perform at that level. So there's always going to be some of pushing forward to that next journey.
I read this in the Indianapolis Star when you were there in 2022. It was a quote from you. I was feeling out the game, checking the temperature instead of setting the temperature. I love that line. Is that a Dayo creation, or was that a coach ringing in your head? 'Cause I love that quote.
Yeah, no, my college coach used to say that a lot, whether you want to be a thermometer or a thermostat, a thermostat changes the temperature and the thermometer checks the temperature. So that's kind of something that stuck with me and that I try to apply, every day. And that's on the field and off the field, like whether it's, being a leader and setting the temperature in that way and, this the way, something should be done, or whether it's on the field and setting the tone with your physicality or whatever
it's like boiling water. Charles Tillman, the famous Peanut Punch man, he read this book. Now I can't remember the title, but 1 degree this way and water's boiling. 1 degree under, it's still hot water.
Yes, sir.
So all that, which leads me to cooking. You love to cook.
Yes, sir.
Tell me the depth of your cooking expertise. What do you like to do in the kitchen? What's your jam?
I mean, I feel like I really try to keep it flowing. Like I change a lot when I'm cooking, like whether it's American food, Italian food, Nigerian food. I could cook steaks, smokes, barbecue, whatever. So
have you cooked for your teammates?
Not here. I haven't cooked for any of my teammates here, so that's something I'm gonna have to do.
Yeah. Take a Thursday night, bring the line in, make some Nigerian food.
Yeah.
What would I be eating if I was eating Nigerian food? What would you recommend? What's your go-to?
Probably, the first thing you want to try is like Nigerian jollof rice. So that's a standard across really all of Africa, but each country makes it a different way. So that's an important staple to try.
I can't leave this interview without you talking about your family, because I read about your mom, Betty, your father, Gary, your brother, Dari, obviously, but the impact of your mom on you, I'm sure she had visions of you being a doctor or something, right? Yeah. But, you know, football was the path to your success and your family's interest in it, you know? Yeah. What's the impact?
I mean, it's really just seeing the way my parents have worked my whole life and seeing everything that they sacrificed to give me an opportunity to just be in this country. You know, moving across the world, leaving everything they've known to give myself and my brother better opportunities. It's inspiring and it's motivating, like, every day. So that's, you know, really why I do it, and to make that investment and their sacrifice worth it. So, you know, that's important to me, and that's something I think about every day.
All right, and your dog Cola, a German Shepherd Collie mix. I saw a picture. Beautiful dog.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This is an important figure in your life, also, right?
Yeah, no, he's definitely very important in my life, and I got him as a rookie in the NFL, so he's been, you know, with
shoulder to shoulder with you.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I don't know if you have a dog or anyone who does, but, like, you know, coming home after a long day and your dog's there and they're always happy to see you, you know, that's always a good way to decompress, and always something, you know, that brings you back to the middle and kind of allows you to step away from, you know, football and all the other pressures and just be able to enjoy life for a little second. So that's always something that's, you know, good to go home to.
Yeah, and then for Maya, I'm looking forward to a little Hurricane Dayo.
Yes, sir.
It's hurricane season, baby.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
So,
again, these interviews, we get a glimpse of more than just football. And Dayo, a very smart guy. Talked to Jeremy Garrett. We're going to talk to him on our podcast this week as well about Dayo, because he had him in college when he was just raw. And, you know, he's just 25 years of age. He's just scratching the surface, honestly, in his career, and he's already put in a lot.
Yeah, you know, it's always interesting when you bring up something like the 55 and the 5 and how it fits into his heritage and stuff. And he goes, well, I got to go back and I got to do a little bit more research on that. What I like about that is because you do so much thinking and talking and viewing of football. Now you get outside the building, whether he's talking about their dog companionship, and nobody knows that better than me because I got Rudy and Sweet Lou waiting for me every day. But then you kind of research outside the boundaries of football and how it factors in your life right now. And Dayo is a guy that is just scratching the surface, as you said, in his career, because he's got versatility. And I think the more that he's able to expose his versatility, the more he's going to learn about his abilities. And, you know, you got to listen to the podcast because I like what you talked to Jeremy about in length. And in the times of length of a defender, there's nobody that used their length better than Dan Hampton. Dan Hampton is a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer at nose guard, at defensive tackle, and defensive end. And one of his greatest assets is the way he used his length. When you're, as an offensive lineman, you get in your stance, the short, stout strength of Steve McMichael and his stance is different than the length, power, and grip strength of Dan Hampton. And I think Dayo, when you look at his versatility, athleticism, intelligence, and ability, I think that his potential for Dennis Allen in this defensive line is going to grow tremendously because you can be used in a variety of different positions and match up with different talent skills. I think it's really going to benefit the Bears' defensive line.
He's going to be matched up opposite 32-year-old Taylor Decker, and if he kicks inside, an interior offensive line that had a rough outing against the Green Bay Packers last week, Tommy. Coming up, defensive coordinator Dennis Allen and Bears quarterback Caleb Williams next on ESPN 1000 and the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. Jeff and Tom breaking down Bears and Lions. So let's talk Caleb Williams, Tom. You know, figuring out that same topic on how to finish. And then working that silent count in Detroit. So let's listen in to Caleb Williams from This Week at Hallis Hall.
It's being able to come together as a team, and especially as an offense. And realize that nobody has to do more than, what we're asked to do. And that's myself included. That's everybody, on the team, but also on the offense especially. It's just being able to go out there and do your 111th. And we'd all do that at one point on one play, and then we move on to the next play and we do it again. Typically good things, come out pretty good on the other side of that. So that's the message. If those moments come up or anything like that, it's just everybody do their job. Everybody go out there and, let's do it at the same time when the ball is snapped. And, let's see what happens.
How loud Ford Field is, and Ben knows with his homecoming it's probably going to be really extra loud. How comfortable are you with the silent cadence, and how much do you think you're going to have to use it?
Yeah, you definitely got to use it on a away game, especially any in-division game that we're going against right here coming up this week. And being able to use that effectively is going to be good for us. I've had practice with it since last year, and then now through training camp and this week we're going to be using it. So it's something you need to use in those loud environments. And I think we'll use it effectively.
With Aiden Hutchinson, I know you didn't play him last year, but you've seen plenty of tape on him. Yeah. As a quarterback, what do you have to kind of be aware of with what he's capable of?
Yeah, obviously he's a great player, and coming off injury, and he's still super explosive. Obviously, you've seen the clips of him and the game that they just played. So he's still the same player, still very explosive, still a high motor guy. And I believe at one point he was the sack leader before he got injured last year, right? Yep. And so just being aware of him, knowing where he is, and being able to help the lineman, getting the ball out early, and slowing him down in those ways. And then just being able to, take care of him, in our game plan.
I'm glad somebody asked him about, Aiden Hutchinson, because that's a big topic as well, where he's at and where he's got to know where he is at all times. But Caleb and his approach after week one, going into a place where he had some success, nearly 600 yards throwing the football against the Lions in the 2 games last season and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, the rhythm of the silent count, if we're going to address that first, a lot of times that comes with the rhythm of the center, not necessarily the rhythm of the quarterback. You break the huddle, you have a certain amount of time on the clock. You go back and you look at that time clock, every member of the offensive line, the quarterback. As he goes through what his visuals that he has to go through after he breaks the huddle and looking at the defense, then one of the guards, Tooney or Jonah, are going to be the igniters. They're going to ignite that Caleb is ready to the center. And you got to be inconsistent about your ignition switch. And even though you get the ignition, it doesn't mean you're going to look and snap the ball immediately, because then the defensive line falls into that rhythm. There's a couple different patterns that you have to fall into. And because Dahlman is so experienced at the center position, I think that you should take his input and what he likes to do as much as the quarterback. And so it's not going to be a problem solved one game. And that's the thing about it. Crowd noise is always a problem. If you play in the league 15 years, it's always an issue. But I do believe, getting the play, Ben getting the play in, getting the play called, go into the line of scrimmage and have a little bit of evaluation time could really help Caleb in the process and also help the offensive line.
A Ben Johnson offense is yard after the catch if it's working great, building off the run game, but also studying the check down and using screens. How can that help better than impact downfield options?
Well, first of all, I think that you have to take the film of this past week's game and go through every check down and go, okay, take that check down, but stop that quarterback at his final drop step. And then you look at the architect of the play, 1, 2, 3. Is something there that I should have taken advantage of, or is the check down the right way to go? And I do think in the process of developing the quarterback position, your relationships that you have with all receivers, tight end, backs, and wide receivers, I think you get a better understanding how to get the ball out of your hands more efficiently. I was encouraged by some of the checkdowns that Caleb took in the game, because what in the past may have resulted in a sack now results in positive yards. However, looking at some of the checkdowns, I think there were some downfield opportunities that Caleb will take advantage of in the future.
Well, let's switch to the defense and Dennis Allen, who really wanted to focus on Detroit, not really go back and check out what happened against Minnesota. But big picture, he knows Detroit wants to run the football.
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities in the run game to what they've done in the past. I think obviously that's the unique thing about when you get into a game and you're really only in the second week of the season. There's still not a lot to go off of in terms of exactly how, Johnny Morton's going to call the game. So I think we'll have to be ready to make some adjustments and see what they're trying to do. But I didn't really notice a whole lot different in terms of how they were trying to attack.
He recognizes what we all know. They have a bully ball mentality, and that opens up the passing game. In order to stop the run and eliminate the yak after the check down and the shot plays, what else is on his plate as a defensive coordinator this week?
Okay, so you got Montgomery, you have Gibbs. You have Gibbs who can fly. He's one of the fastest running backs in the league. And if he runs a steady diet of outside zone plays, then cornerback safety's got to be willing to create that contain. They got to be willing tacklers. They got to lead the charge against Gibbs before he gets in that exterior open field. Because if he's on the outside and you become a chaser, you're not going to catch him. And then when you look at the inside running game, that's more where David Montgomery makes his money. It's about the defensive line in that solid rotation of having fresh defensive linemen in there all the time, being able to protect the linebackers and make sure that they can get into that tackling position where they initiate contact and it's not delivered by Montgomery. If Montgomery delivers the contact, he's going to get an extra 2 yards after contact, a lot like what Walter Payton did throughout his career. And so it's going to be about this continuous rotation of the defensive linemen. They played maybe 8 to 10 guys in the game against the Minnesota Vikings. I really like that rotation, and everybody has a little bit something to offer. And then you look at the versatilities at Dayo. You look at the pass rush ability of a Hardy. You think of what Dominique Robinson can do as a pure athlete, and then all the other guys, how they filter into that game plan. Keep a variety of defensive linemen going, and I think it can really help the rest of the defense.
All right, coming up next, the voice of the Lions, Dan Miller, joins us here on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy. Had a chance to visit, late notice, albeit, with the voice of the Detroit Lions, Dan Miller, a team there in Detroit who is hearing a lot already after 1 week of the football season. Here's Dan.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. I mean, look, 0-2 in this league is digging yourself a hole to start the season. When you look at this NFC North, which you expect to be competitive, and you can't count on the other teams losing a lot of games. And like you said, we're going to Baltimore after this. So the thought of being 0-2 heading into a Monday night game in Baltimore against the Ravens is not what anybody would sign up for. So, yeah, I mean, both teams, didn't get it done in week 1. So week 2 becomes even more important.
I was squirming a little bit. I saw a Twitter clip of one of the reporters in Detroit asking Dan Campbell about why they just didn't do a carbon copy of what Ben Johnson did with the offense. And he kept it together, but it really made me squirm. I'm sure that was something anticipated, right, after one game if things didn't look exactly the way fans have become used to over the last 3 years. What was your take on how Dan handled that at the podium?
Well, I mean, look, I've never seen him in his time here. He doesn't get upset at questions. That one was kind of like him just looking at him and saying, Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That one, he is unflappable up there. And it really, I mean, not to get too deep into it, but he's just a good dude. And he doesn't, even if you hit him with one that's stupid, he's going to just kind of give you an answer and move on to the next question. He doesn't try to belittle people. He doesn't try to fire back at people. He just really goes up there, does his thing. You're not going to see him sweat. And then he moves on to the next question. But look, there were questions with this team coming into this season that we weren't going to be able to answer and won't be able to answer until we see them play games. And that was interior offensive line, and that was new coordinators, and that was consistent pass rush. And look, through 1 week, it wasn't great. So people start asking questions, and I think he was ready for a lot of that. But look, they are doing a lot of the same things that they did when Ben Johnson was here. John Morton was here when Ben designed this offense. John Morton was here when they installed this offense. So you're going to see a lot of the same things. What you're not seeing is Frank Ragnow in the middle of that offensive line and Kevin Zeitler at a guard spot. And things have changed, and it's going to take a beat. Now, you don't have much time to get it together, but I think one game tape provides a lot for a team to be able to look at and say, guys, here's where we need to be better. Here's where we have to be better if we ultimately want to get this thing going.
Yeah, it's like a hammer hitting your thumb week one, for any fan, right? I mean, week one.
Well, there's so much emotion that goes into it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. You're through the whole off season and all the changes you made and all the hope that you brought. And, for you guys, it's a new head coach. It's this head coach is going to get this quarterback going in the right direction. It's the free agents that you brought in. For the Lions, it's, let's finish what they started here and have a great season and get to a Super Bowl. And then you play one game and it's just like FUD. And there's overreactions to it. But I think that's every team in the league because it's built up so much and you wait for it and anticipate it. And then when it doesn't go your way, it can feel like there's more to it than there is. There's no finality to a first game, but it can feel that way sometimes. You can change an awful lot from week one to week two, but it's a hard one to overcome for some time after that first game. But then you realize you better be ready because you got to line up and go again.
Dan Miller, our guest, the voice of the Detroit Lions for many years on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network, kind enough to join us. All right, so at a minimum, I would suspect both teams want to get their running games going. And no better place to start if you're an opposing team going into that building than to take the starch out of a crowd by running the football. And with your two great running backs, getting that thing going, I would imagine, is a big first step to week two.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, the Lions did a pretty good job against the run. They had Jacobs bottled up pretty good. Now, he got warmed down a little bit in the fourth quarter. They got going. He had a 15-yard run that kind of boosted his stats. But I think generally they were pretty happy with the job they did against the running game. And the Lions were really good against the run last year and have been really good against the run the past couple of years. So they need to continue that. You can't give Chicago balance because that's just going to make them more dangerous. And offensively, 100%. Look, the Lions are built around their ability to run the ball. And they want to hand it to Gibbs and hand it to David Montgomery and then have it open things up for Amon-Ra and Jamo and Laporta and Isaac Tesla is going to play a role. So 100%. Look, we've been doing this a long time, and every coach you talk to says defensively, what do we got to do this week? We got to stop the run.
Yeah.
And then offensively, you want to have balance, and if you can run the ball, you exert your will on the other team, and then you get them back on their heels a little bit, and you can hit them with the passing game that the Lions know they can do. So it's paramount to what they want to do the rest of the way. It's not going to be there every week, but it has to be a staple of what they do.
Last question before we let you go. Appreciate the short notice and the time. Aiden Hutchinson, how's he look to you, and where is his mindset at right now as he gets ready for the first home game of his NFL 2025 season?
Yeah, he looked unbelievable in camp. I mean, just you would not have known that he was coming off a major injury, and he looked fantastic. Obviously, it wasn't there in week one. I would submit this. Aiden will be fine, but he does need to get some help on that defensive line, and that's one of the questions from this team is how do you generate pass rush outside of Aiden? You don't have Aleem McNeil until probably October, November. So who on the interior is going to provide a pass rush, and who on the other side can provide a pass rush, whether it's Davenport or Al-Quadin Muhammad or whoever it is. They need some other guys to step up, and Green Bay did a great job when the Lions tried to bring pressure or bring a blitz. They picked it up. So I think Aiden will be fine. Wasn't the kind of game we're used to seeing from him, but I think he is who he is. He's going to get back to being the guy that can wreck a game and change a game, but I would also keep an eye on other guys on that line that have got to step up and help them out and make the other teams know that there's more up there than just 97.
Dan Miller, voice of the Detroit Lions. Let's share a cup of Joe when we get in the booth on Sunday. How about it?
Look forward to it, my brother. Always good to see you. We'll look forward to seeing you guys on Sunday.
All right, our final segment ahead. We'll hear from Richard Hightower coming up along with Declan Doyle. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
This is Bears Weekly with the voice of the Bears for 24 years, Chef Joniak on the Bears Radio Network.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. Our final view of what's going to happen, Bears and Lions. First, let's discuss Richard Hightower. Felt didn't go the way they wanted in the operation of the 50-yard field goal attempt. Much conversation about the end-of-game kickoff. A lot about what's coming here on Sunday against another really good special teams unit.
We got to be better there. And I got to coach it better, and we got to be better. It starts with the snap. The snap has to be on target, and then the protection's got to be good and solid. And then Torrey's got to give us a good punt, and we got to do a better job covering. We knew that kid was a really good player, but we playing a better returner this week, so that's what's exciting. We playing All-Pro this week, so it'll be good there. And then the other part of the message to the team was we left points on the board on field goal, and I didn't think that that was up to our liking, and we obviously didn't want the game to end that way. So that's what it was. It was a tale of two halves, and we're excited about the challenge going into a hostile environment, playing a really good special teams unit, really good. And we always have a heavyweight fight with them, all right? And that's what it's been. It's been their unit and our unit, two really good units going against each other in a battle every year, and it's always been, and it's been a chess match, and I'm looking forward to it. And that's what it's been.
Tommy's really high on Khalif Raymond, called him an All-Pro. There were 6 returns of 20-plus in the punt return game last week in the NFL, 150-plus in Atlanta, I guess. But you're big on this, for the special teams unit to go up there, everything seemingly has to go really well in all 3 phases, so therefore limit the damage on special teams. No big plays allowed or given up, right?
Yeah. The thing about Torrey Taylor is he's got to come out of his shell. He's got to have a banger day, and that's every single punt, because you can't give up field position and have create a short field when they are on the punt return unit. And so Torrey's got to have a big day. Conditions obviously are going to be perfect. The snaps are coming in. Now you got to reinforce the blocking up front so he has confidence in his protection, and then get that ball in an explosive manner off his foot. And that's the unique thing about special teams. There's so much uncertainty because the way the roster rotates week in and week out due to injuries and new players coming aboard. But it's going to be a battle that you're going to have to pay attention to, because when you talk about a developing offense and a new defensive coordinator and Dennis Allen and Ben, and then the same thing on the other side, they need to be complemented by their special teams. And it can't be a concern. It's got to be a compliment.
Yeah, and Jack Fox, the Detroit punter, is a 2-time Pro Bowler. Very, very good punter. Very good punter.
Yeah, but listen, man, I want the explosiveness that we know Torrey is capable of. And if he can do that for the whole game, then it's going to create a longer field, and it's going to allow Dennis Allen to attack more initially.
All right. Finally, offensive coordinator Declan Doyle, who had a lot to say about the move plays that Caleb made in week 1 and what he's capable of doing, that balance between the move throws and decisions about sitting in there in the pocket.
We talk about that all the time with the second act. You want to be playing within the offensive system, and so you want to be playing through your reads. And then at a certain point in time, sometimes it's coverage dictated. They might be playing a variation of 2-man. They don't have somebody for the quarterback, and we're going to tell him in those situations, sometimes your legs are better than whatever we have called, and it's your responsibility to go hurt those guys. We had 4 explosives off of scrambles, and so it's something that certainly can provide a lot of value for our offense. It's something that you don't want to lean away from. You don't want to say, hey, be a robot and sit in there. However, we want to be playing within our scheme, the plays that are designed for certain coverages, and then quarterback, you're the eraser. You erase mistakes, and you go make it happen. And so that's something that, obviously we'll encourage him to do that, to extend plays and go make yards. Obviously, you see when he takes off, he's pretty fast and he can roll. So something that, we're excited about in our offense.
Odeyingbo was saying the other day that the throw he made to him on the first drive along your sideline there when he was on the run is something that's rare.
Yeah.
What about Caleb throwing on the run is different than other quarterbacks.
You guys can see it, like fans can see it. That's the thing that makes him, that's his superpower is when he's extending, he has incredible arm talent. There are things that happened the other night that you're like, man, there's a handful of guys in the league that can make those kinds of plays. And then there's a lot of plays that, you watch the tape and, he may come back and be like, hey, I want that one back. And so obviously there's a lot of talent there, but it's really just the expectation for all of us is that we improve every week. And this is a race right here. Like we're in training camp. It's totally blind. Like you have blinders on. Week 1, 2, 3, 4, that's where teams really find out who they are. And that's where the huge jumps are made from week 1 to 2 to 3. And that's what we need to do right now. We have to have a sense of urgency about it and improve.
There are things that you want to see from Caleb, obviously, but you just can't take away when he has that instinctiveness to just go. Because he made a lot of plays last week just with his legs.
Yeah. Declan, first of all, he says play in the system. And that's, I think, what you preach every single day to every quarterback in the National Football League, especially a young quarterback that's newly being introduced to a system. Play the system, and that's best going to fit your skill set and the skill set of your surrounding teammates. But when you do have to scramble, listen, man, you are creative, you are fast, you are explosive. You can, what did Declan say? He created 4 or 5 explosives just by his scrambling ability, and keep that up. And I still will not ignore the fact that everything is learned repetitiously. We're in the second week of the regular season. This is going to be a different monster than week 1 was because of everything you were going with in the first Monday night game. Now you're going on the road to a tough environment. But I think Caleb is an extremely confident young man, and the more that he's able to talk, see, and say the system, the better he's going to use it on game day.
All right, Tommy, that's going to wrap us up. Thanks to everybody for listening. The executive producer of the Bears Radio Network is Eric Ostrowski. Thanks to Kendra Smith in the ESPN studios, and our producers, Dan Burley, Jordan Tredup, and Katie Fox. For Tom Thayer, Dayo Odeyingbo, and Dan Miller, I'm Jeff Joniak. This has been Bears Weekly on the new radio home of the Chicago Bears, ESPN Chicago. Have a good night, everybody. ESPN Radio's national coverage next with Amber and Ian. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Chicago Bears Network presentation of Bears Weekly, hosted by the Mayor of Bearsville, Jeff Joniak, and Surfmaster Tom Thayer. Podcasts are available on the Chicago Bears official app, brought to you by Verizon and Apple Podcasts. Bears Weekly has been brought to you by Miller Lite.